Where Hands Touch drew swift backlash for its tone and perceived message before it even hit theaters. Directed by Amma Asante and starring Amandla Steenberg, this 2018 film is set in Nazi Germany and follows Lena, a black German teenager whose mother is white German and whose father is a black African-American soldier. She falls in love with Lutz, a young fanatical member of the Hitler Youth played by George McKay. Lena's very identity makes her a target. After being detained in a special camp, she and Lutz struggle to survive as the war turns against Germany. At its Toronto Film Festival premiere, critics and audiences objected to what they perceived as the film's problematic depiction of race and its perceived redeeming narrative around Nazi Germany. Many felt that portraying a German Nazi sympathizer in a romantic light risked normalizing the cruelty of the regime. The New York Times derided it as a gut-wrenching misfire, and Jezebel lamented that the film missed a chance to seriously address the plight of biracial Germans without a troubling love story. The film was pulled from U.S. theaters after only 3 days due to terrible reviews and audience rejection. It grossed only about $68,000 domestically. The love story was especially controversial because it features a Nazi Hitler Youth boy who eventually joins Lena in escaping imprisonment. Critics panned the film for historical insensitivity. Audiences reportedly walked out at TIFF and the movie quickly faded from public view. Where Hands Touch remains known mainly for its controversy rather than cinematic merit. Downfall was controversial with audiences for showing a human side of Hitler and members of the Third Reich. This 2004 German film directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel depicts Adolf Hitler's final days in the Führer bunker during the fall of Berlin in 1945. Bruno Ganz plays Hitler alongside Alexandra Maria Lara as Traudl Junge, Hitler's young secretary who narrates the collapse of the Nazi regime. The movie culminates in Hitler's suicide and the chaotic end of Nazi rule, but here's why it sparked massive debate. Viewers were unsettled by seeing Hitler behave like an ordinary man with personal fears and dreams. Some critics argued this humanizing approach risked eliciting undue sympathy for one of history's most evil figures. Others countered that depicting Hitler as a fallible human only underscores the horror of his actions. The film's dramatic bunker tirade scene was parodied heavily online, spawning countless internet memes which fed debate over tone and respectability. Based on eyewitness accounts including Secretaries Traudl Junge and Hitler Youth member Rokas Misch, the screenplay was grounded in historical sources. It premiered at the 2004 Toronto Film Festival and became the highest-grossing German film of its year. Bruno Ganz's performance earned international acclaim. Downfall was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars. However, reactions were mixed about its tone. Over time, the film's status has stabilized as a critically respected drama, though debates linger about whether it inadvertently softens its villain. The Painted Bird is infamous for its extreme depictions of violence and depravity. At the 2019 Venice Film Festival premiere, many audience members fled the theater. This Czech film, directed by Václav Marhul and adapted from Jerzy Kosinski's novel, follows a nameless young Jewish boy hiding in a fictitious Eastern European village during World War II. Shot in black and white, the film is over 3 hours long. As the boy wanders alone, each new caretaker subjects him to worse cruelty. A pig farmer gouges out a man's eyes, villagers mutilate each other, and the boy endures famine, bestiality, incest, and tribal violence in an almost medieval terror landscape. The boy's innocent perspective underscores the total collapse of civilization under Nazi rule. British tabloids sensationalized the reaction. The Daily Mail called the film a panoply of depravity, and The Sun ran the headline about sickened filmgoers brawling to escape the premiere featuring brutal scenes of incest, rape, and mutilation. The director's insistence that it was based on truthful history only fueled debate over whether such graphic portrayal was necessary or exploitative. Filmed on location in rural Czech and Ukrainian settings, the violence is often implied rather than CGI, lending it raw realism. Director Marhul noted that compared to similarly violent films, audiences seem scared about themselves because he's showing them something in their own minds. Reviews were polarized. Many critics applaud its cinematography and uncompromising vision. It won Best Film at several European festivals. However, mainstream press focused on the shock factor. Modern reviews call it a towering achievement in cinematography even as they warn it is grueling to watch. The film certainly ignited debate about the limits of wartime storytelling. Army of Shadows. Upon release, Army of Shadows provoked shock with its grim realism. Jean-Pierre Melville's 1969 French-Italian film tells the story of a small cell of the French resistance in 1942 France. Lino Ventura plays veteran partisan Philippe Gerbier. The film follows Gerbier and his comrades as they go underground after an informer betrays them to the Nazis. They move clandestinely from safe house to safe house, planning acts of sabotage while knowing capture means torture. Unlike patriotic war films, there are no heroic battles or public rallies, just paranoia, betrayals, personal sacrifices, and a sense that very few French actually help them. Melville, himself a former resistant, portrayed the resistance not as a glorious popular movement but as a bleak, secretive, fugitive existence. French audiences in 1969, still under de Gaulle's shadow of heroic war myth-making, reacted strongly. Critics were unsettled by the absence of any triumphant patriotism. The film attacked a long-standing and politically convenient myth about France under Nazi occupation. For decades, Army of Shadows was virtually unseen in France. It only opened in the US in 2006 and in France via a restoration in 2007. Based on Joseph Kessel's novel, Melville shot it with a shadowy noir style. It premiered at Cannes in 1969 but did not initially get a theatrical release in France. The Gaullist-era industry kept it hidden until 2006. Today, Army of Shadows is regarded as Melville's masterpiece. Modern reviewers praise its tension and moral complexity. Roger Ebert called it masterly. Initially, though, the film drew mostly negative press in France. Its legacy now is of a once controversial classic that went from obscurity to classic as attitudes changed. Triumph of the Will. This film is perhaps the most infamous example of propaganda cinema. Leni Riefenstahl's 1935 documentary chronicles the 1934 Nuremberg Party Congress. Using innovative camera techniques and orchestral music, the film shows Hitler arriving at the rally, marching troops, mass rallies of the SA and SS in formation, and fiery speeches by Hitler and other Nazi leaders. Its theme is the revival of Germany as a great power under Hitler. Commissioned and approved by Hitler, Triumph of the Will glorifies Nazism with almost religious fervor. Technically acclaimed for its artistry, it is overshadowed by its content. After World War II, Riefenstahl was denazified. The film became a byword for evil propaganda. Riefenstahl herself controversially insisted that the film was simply history, pure history, denying any political agenda, but most scholars see it as a calculated glorification of Hitler. Riefenstahl shot the 11-14-minute film on location during the rally. It premiered in 1935 to awards in Germany, France, and Italy, celebrating its striking cinematography. For decades it was banned in Germany and elsewhere. Only in recent years has it been shown for educational purposes. In Germany today, it is still tightly controlled. A federal board only allows screenings in classroom settings. Film historians now study it as a masterclass in documentary techniques, but all commentary emphasizes the film's sinister context. One contemporary review quipped that in Riefenstahl's hands, it showed how a pharaoh's tunnel vision could be executed as art. The Eternal Zero. Though a box office hit, The Eternal Zero sparked debate over its message. This 2013 Japanese war drama directed by Takashi Yamazaki stars Junichi Okada as Kyuzo Miyabe, a skilled pilot. A young man named Kentaro digs into the wartime past of his beloved grandfather, a decorated World War II pilot who volunteered for kamikaze missions. Through interviews with his grandfather's fellow pilots, Kentaro pieces together how his grandfather, who was ostracized as a coward for wanting to live, ultimately found purpose in preserving life rather than dying in battle. Critics accused it of nationalistic glorification of kamikaze pilots. Legendary animator Hayao Miyazaki denounced it as a pack of lies that perpetuated a romantic myth of Japan's war. Detractors argued the movie ignores the imperial causes of the war and instead paints the pilots solely as heroes trapped by circumstance. The film drew criticism for nationalistic and sympathetic depiction of the kamikaze pilots. Based on a best-selling novel, it became the second highest-grossing Japanese film of 2013, winning 8 Japan Academy Awards. Its release in Japan was a media event. Audiences in Japan largely embraced the personal drama and visual effects. Critics were divided. Some praised its heartfelt story and production values, while others criticized historical inaccuracies. The film was controversial upon its release, with some critics accusing it of glorifying nationalism. The debate continued online, and the film remains a touchstone in discussions of how Japan reckons with its wartime legacy. Lacombe Lucien. The film was scandalous upon release. Louis Malle's 1974 drama set in 1944 occupied France stars Pierre Blaise as Lucien Lacombe. Lucien is a 16-year-old peasant boy. Naive and apolitical, he is rejected by the resistance and drifts until he joins the local milice, French Gestapo collaborators. He is trained to carry out arrests and torture fellow Frenchmen. The film traces how an ordinary youth, hungry for purpose and approval, becomes a brutal figure of oppression. It was one of the first French films to address the issue of collaboration and was immediately deemed brave and controversial. French audiences were divided. Some saw it as a necessary confronting of national guilt, while others were outraged that the protagonist was not a heroic resistant, but a sympathetic-sounding traitor. In 1974, such a portrayal challenged France's official narrative of widespread resistance. Based on a novel by Patrick Modiano, it was shot in the Bordeaux region. It won the jury prize at Cannes 1974. However, its subject matter led to controversy. Some cinemas were picketed by nationalist groups, and it was even briefly pulled from French theaters. Film critic Pauline Kael praised Malle for shining a harsh light on an ugly truth, but some French politicians attacked it. Over time, Lacombe Lucien has come to be appreciated as a classic. Modern writers call it a disquieting portrait of lost innocence and guilt. Today it is studied for its unflinching look at collaboration. The Great Dictator. Released before America entered the war, The Great Dictator was considered provocative for directly mocking Hitler. Charlie Chaplin's 1940 film is a bold satire taking aim at Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. Chaplin plays dual roles: Adenoid Heinkel, dictator of Tomania, and a gentle Jewish barber mistaken for the dictator. The film lampoons the absurdities of totalitarianism, from a famous Globe dance bit mocking Hitler's plans to a final impassioned plea for peace and humanity. For its time, it was a controversial satire. Many Hollywood studios had been censoring anti-Nazi content to avoid offending foreign markets, but Chaplin famously pressed ahead. The film puts a target on Chaplin's back as an avowed enemy of the Nazis. The movie was banned in Nazi Germany and German-occupied Europe. In the US, some isolationists criticized it as inflammatory, but there was no official ban. Chaplin wrote, directed, produced, and starred in the film, his first full-sound picture. He began making it in 1939 when many Americans were still neutral about the war. Its famous final speech was both praised and occasionally censored during later authoritarian regimes. The film was a commercial hit worldwide and earned Chaplin an Academy Award nomination. Critics praised its humor and humanity. Chaplin's famed closing monologue is often cited as one of cinema's great speeches. In retrospect, it's considered a pioneering anti-fascist statement. Modern reviewers routinely call Chaplin's blend of comedy and courage remarkable. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to see more content like that.